You were never taught how money actually works. You were taught how to earn it, spend it, save a little and repeat. That's not financial education. That's behavioral conditioning. And the people at the top of the financial system know exactly what it produces. A predictable class of people who work hard their entire lives and still end up with almost nothing to show for it. Here's the uncomfortable starting point. The top 1% don't think about money the way you do. Not because they're smarter, not because they had better opportunities, but because they operate from a completely different mental framework, one that was never shared with you, not in school, not at home, not anywhere in the system designed to prepare you for adult life. Most people think about money in terms of income. How much am I making? Can I make more? If I work harder, will I earn enough? This is the trap. The moment you define your financial life through income alone, you've already lost the game. Because income is linear. You trade time, you get paid. You stop trading time, the money stops. The 1% don't play that game. They think in terms of assets, things that generate value whether they're working or not. That single shift in thinking creates the entire gap between financial freedom and financial survival. This is where most people fail. Not because they don't work hard enough, but because they're optimizing for the wrong thing. You've been taught to get a better job, earn a higher salary, climb the ladder. But climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall only takes you further from where you actually want to be. The financial system isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed. It rewards asset ownership and punishes pure wage dependency. It was built by people who think in terms of ownership, leverage, and compounding, and it continues to benefit those who understand those principles. The system doesn't need you to be poor. It just needs you to stay predictable, to keep spending, keep borrowing, and keep believing that next year's raise will finally be the thing that changes everything. Here's a psychological reality most people never confront. Your relationship with money was shaped before you were old enough to question it. The spending habits, the risk tolerance, the beliefs about what's realistic, all of it was inherited. And inherited beliefs are the most dangerous kind because they feel like your own. You don't question them, you defend them. The 1% operate with a fundamentally different psychological baseline. They don't see money as something to be spent after it's earned. They see it as a tool to be deployed. Every dollar is evaluated not by what it can buy today, but by what it can produce tomorrow. That's not discipline. That's a different category of thinking entirely. And until you internalize that shift, no amount of income will move you forward because you'll keep converting assets into consumption. There's another layer that rarely gets discussed. The top earners don't just think differently about money. They think differently about risk. The average person avoids risk because they can't afford to lose. The 1% manage risk because they've structured their financial lives to absorb losses without collapsing. That's not recklessness. That's architecture. They've built systems that make calculated risk possible, while most people are one emergency away from financial disaster, which means they can't afford to take any risk at all, and therefore can't access any of the wealth-building mechanisms that require it. You think you're making progress, but you're actually stuck in a loop, working more to spend more, saving occasionally, but never enough to move the needle, waiting for permission from an economy that was never designed to hand it to you. The question isn't whether you're working hard enough. The question is whether you understand what game is actually being played. The deepest psychological trap in personal finance isn't debt. It isn't overspending. It's the illusion of forward motion. Most people feel like they're progressing because they're busy. They're working longer hours, getting small raises, occasionally saving a little more. But busyness is not the same as momentum. And this is exactly where the system wins. Not by stopping you, but by keeping you just comfortable enough to never fundamentally change your approach. The 1% understands something about time that most people don't. Time is not just a resource, it's a multiplier. Every year you spend thinking in terms of income instead of assets is a year of compounding that you'll never get back. Compounding doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't reward effort. It rewards positioning. And if you're not positioned inside systems that compound investments, ownership stakes, scalable income structures, then time is actually working against you, not for you. Inflation alone is quietly eroding whatever you've managed to save. Here's the psychological realization that changes everything. Wealthy people don't escape the financial system. They understand it deeply enough to use it. The The same banking mechanisms that trap the average person in debt cycles, leverage, credit, interest, are the exact tools the 1% use to build wealth. The difference isn't access, it's comprehension. A mortgage is a liability to someone who doesn't understand leverage. It's a tool to someone who does. Debt used to acquire depreciating things destroys wealth. Debt used to acquire income-generating assets can build it. Same instrument, completely different outcome, based entirely on the mental framework behind the decision. This is where the behavioral psychology becomes critical. Most financial decisions aren't made rationally. They're made emotionally, then justified with logic afterward. You buy things to signal status, to feel security, to reward yourself for hard work. None of that is inherently wrong. But if those impulses are driving every major financial decision you make, then your emotions are managing your money. And emotions are extraordinarily expensive financial managers. The 1% aren't emotionless, but they've developed the discipline to separate identity from financial decision-making. They don't buy things to feel wealthy. They make decisions that produce wealth, and the feelings follow later. There's an uncomfortable truth embedded in all of this. The gap between the wealthy and everyone else isn't primarily a gap in income. It's a gap in financial architecture. The average person builds their financial life reactively, responding to expenses, emergencies, and opportunities as they appear. The wealthy build proactively, designing systems, structures, and habits in advance that produce outcomes automatically. One approach requires constant effort to maintain. The other builds momentum over time. And the longer each system runs, the wider the gap between them grows. Most people are waiting for a moment of arrival, a salary threshold, a promotion, a lucky break. But the 1% don't think in moments of arrival. They think in systems that run continuously. They're not asking, how do I make more money this month? They're asking, what can I build or own that generates value without requiring my constant attention? That question leads to an entirely different set of decisions, habits, and ultimately, outcomes. The final realization is this: the way you currently think about money is not neutral. It is producing a specific result in your life right now. Every belief you hold about what's realistic, what's too risky, what you deserve, and what's possible, all of it is actively shaping your financial reality. The 1% didn't just learn different financial strategies. They rebuilt their entire mental relationship with money from the ground up. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more income. You need a different operating system. Because until the framework changes, the results won't. And the framework has always been the real starting point.